everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're getting started on Laurie Kent Designs Take Me to the Beach Bench Pillow Project. This is so cute and I'm excited to get started. What I'm going to do is each video that comes out from here on out, we're going to be focusing on 2 blocks per video. So the first video today, we're going to work on block number 1 and block number 3. And what I'm trying to do is build up your skills. I want to start with really simple basic blocks, and then I'm going to build up your skills a little bit. And then I'll throw an easy one in along the way as well. But each block you'll be able to get more confident in doing these blocks. They're really going to be fun to do. So just follow along and do the blocks with me in the same order, and you'll get a lot of skills and confidence as we build up to tackle the more difficult blocks toward the end. So in this video, we're going to tackle blocks number 1 and block 3. Block number 1 is this cute little crab over here in the corner. And I believe this little blue one down here is block 3. It's a small blue one with just stippling on it. So we're going to work on these 2 right here, all right? So go ahead and grab your fabrics that you have labeled for block 1, which is a red blender if you're using the kit, and block 3, which is the blue scuba fabric, the smaller piece. And grab those, and let's go over to the machine and let's get started. Okay, we are at the machine and we are ready to get started on this cute project. Again, this is Take Me to the Beach Bench Pillow Project by Laurie Kent. I will put the link in the description below, just in case you haven't had a chance to view my previous videos where we talk about getting this design. This is going to be super fun. It's by Laurie Kent, and I'll put a link again in the description below so that you can purchase this design if you'd like to sew along. She has an amazing package where you get the kit and the design, and then you can add the threads along as well. The glide thread that she uses for this project is wonderful. Glide thread is very good thread, and I love to use it. So she has a thread set that is perfect for this collection, and she is giving you all the colors that you need. So you might think about grabbing that as well when you order the design, because it makes it so much easier. In her instructions, she even tells you which color number to use as we go through each block. But glide thread is very nice thread. It's wonderful to work with, so I highly recommend it. So we're going to do that. I've put a piece of poly-no-show mesh stabilizer in my hoop, and for this block I'm using a 5x7 hoop. We're going to start by making block number 1 today, and then we're going to make block number 3 as well. So today we're doing blocks 1 and 3, and they're both small enough you could probably use a 4x4, but I use a little bit slightly larger hoop so you can see it on the camera a little bit easier. So we're going to use a 5x7 hoop for this. So put a piece of poly-no-show mesh in your hoop, and we're going to put that on the machine. I'm checking my bobbin thread. I have a little bit left. I'm going to use this for the first few steps. So if you have a bobbin with white thread that you really don't have a lot left on, this is a great time to use it. In the instructions, if you're looking at the instructions on page 1, Laurie talks about using a water-soluble thread. There's 2 sides of opinion on water-soluble thread. I'll give you mine. On page 1, Laurie recommends using water-soluble thread for the first part, for your placement stitch, your tack down of the battleizer, and your tack down of the fabric. That's great. If you have water-soluble thread, you can definitely use it. There's no issues there. My personal opinion is twofold. One, I don't think thread adds that much of a weight to a project like this. This is a bench pillow, so it's not like it's a king-size quilt where I might consider using water-soluble thread on certain steps to help reduce on the weight. This is a bench pillow, so it's not that big of a project. And that's the main benefit of using water-soluble thread, is that section of the project that you're using that on, those threads will dissolve in water and will not be in your final project. However, my issue with water-soluble thread is, number one, my machine doesn't like it. I have a Embroidery machine, and it is not a happy camper when I put water-soluble thread in the bobbin. Also, there's one little trick to this. As you do each block, if you see in the instructions here, it says we're going to do a placement stitch with water-soluble. We're going to do a tack down battleizer or batting with water-soluble, tack down fabric water-soluble. You then have to switch that out of your bobbin and put in regular thread, because if you do the stippling in water-soluble, guess what? The minute your project gets laundered, those stitches will fall out. So for that second reason, I don't like using water-soluble, because I will forget to switch it out, and I'll be stitching all of my block with water-soluble. I won't know it until I go to launder it, and poof, there goes all my embroidery. So that's the second main reason why I don't use it. Again, my machine isn't a happy camper with it. It breaks a lot, and I am seriously afraid of leaving it in by accident and stitching my whole block and then having all that wasted and probably not knowing it until the quilt is put together. That is my experience with myself, knowing that I'm one of these days going to forget to switch it out. So because this project is not that big, and because I really don't have a concern with the weight of it, I'm going to stick with regular bobbin thread. You can get your bobbin thread anywhere. I use, just happens to be Thread Art. They get a big spool here of, my goodness, 5,000 meters. And it's a 60 weight poly. And that's my bobbin thread of choice. My machine likes it. And that's all that matters, is that it likes it. It doesn't matter if I like it. My machine has to like it. Because that's my baby, and that's what's going to be making all these wonderful designs. This is the machine. So I've put a little bit of regular bobbin thread in the bottom. If you choose to use the water-soluble, that's great. Just please mark your instructions at every point where that ends with a star. Change bobbin thread so you don't accidentally forget to do it. Okay? So for reference, I will be using regular bobbin thread throughout this project, but you use what you would like. It's a personal preference, that's all. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is I put my hoop on my machine. We're going to stitch out a placement line for the block. So let's go ahead and go to the screen. Here we go. Now I have a Embroidery machine. Isn't that gorgeous? Oof. I have a Embroidery machine if you'd like to follow along. So we need to load the design first. Now I have already loaded the design onto my machine. Now I just need to pull it up. Let's go to Embroidery and go to the flash drive that I have in there. And I have put it in a Take Me to the Beach folder. And if you haven't done this, I have a video I'll put in the description below that shows you how to transfer files from a CD to your computer to your machine. Now, if you've purchased this kit from Laurie Kent, she has a kit with a USB drive in it, and all the files are on there. So all you have to do is load that into your machine. Thank you, Laurie, for making it easy to load the files. Okay, so we're going to be looking for the crab block. This is block number 1, which is this little guy right here. It's called Crab. So we're going to load that design. He's adorable. We don't need to do anything. We're going to click Set. And we're all set. We're going to click Embroidery. Okay. So now let's go back to the hoop cam. And I'm going to be putting in the first color of thread in the top of my machine. And this is going to be Papaya 70178. Yes, that's going to be Papaya. That's going to be what we're actually going to be stippling the block with, but we can go ahead and put it in now, do the placement stitch, and tack down the batting and the fabric with it so we don't have to do so many thread switches. So I'm going to load the papaya. The glides are great. They have this bottom that pops out that holds your thread so it doesn't get all over your thread cabinet or your thread stand. So it's really easy. There we go, to pop it all out. And then when you're done, you put it in that ridge and you pop it back up like this. Put it in the ridge. And it holds your thread. It's so ingenious. One of the many reasons I love glide thread. So I'm going to put this thread on the top of the machine. And we're going to get stitching. Are you excited to make this project? I am. This is going to be really, really fun. Okay, so let's load the thread. And let's go ahead and let's stitch out the placement stitch. Here we go. Oop, there's a loop. One of my rules, if you see a loop, get that loop out because it will break a needle in a second. Ask me how I know. Okay, here we go. Placement line. Okay, now we're going to put the batting down or battleizer. And here's a little trick of the trade. Okay, I have this batting. It is equivalent to battleizer. It's not the real battleizer because I'm out of that right now. I need to order that. This is a very lightweight batting. It's perfect. It mimics the battleizer in the fact that it's not thick and heavy. Like normally I'll use Warm and Natural for all my projects. That's a very warm and heavy, perfect for quilt type batting. This is just a pillow, so this can be a little bit lighter, doesn't take up so much bulk, doesn't have to be as warm as what I would think a quilt would be because it's a pillow. It's more of a decorative project, but we want some sort of batting in there to give it a cool loft and dimension to the embroidery. Now, as you notice, I have a big piece of batting here. Here's another one of my little tricks of the trade. Instead of pre-cutting your batting with all these different sizes for this project, because there's a lot of different size blocks, I just cut what I consider to be a medium to small piece off my batting, and I'm just going to lay it down and have the excess go off the left, and I can kind of maximize the amount of batting that I'm using without having to cut individual squares or pieces like we did for the fabric. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to open it. I'm going to have it off to the left. And like I said, it's a medium manageable piece. It's not like the whole package. I would not do that because that would be a little bit too difficult. I just cut a piece that I can manage. And see, I can just pull it right over. No problem. Line it up. Have the excess go off the back. Sorry, I hit the camera there. Have the excess go off the back and the left. And I can light it up here and literally maximize the amount of batting that I'm using, and I'm not wasting. I hate wasting product because that's money. And this, if I do stuff like this, I can actually get more projects out of my materials, and I like that. So we're totally covered. I allowed about 1 inch on each side, and let's go ahead. You can either tape it in place, or I'm just going to hold it down with my stylus, and let's tack down this batting. Isn't that great? So now I just slide this off because we're going to take it over to the table. And now I'm going to trim up right around all the excess batting. But you see, I didn't waste much. I'm literally going to trim right here and trim right here. So the only little waste is the allowance I leave on the bottom and the right. So you can really maximize your supplies that way. A little trick of the trade, so to speak. The longer you do this, the more little tricks you pick up. Okay, so let's take this over to the table and let's trim away the excess batting. Okay, see that? Very nice. Okay, we still got some amount of bobbin thread left. So I'm going to put the hoop back on the machine. And now we're going to tack down the fabric. So I've got my little piece of fabric right over here. And I've put fusible on the back to help support the cotton in our stitch out. So now we're going to put the fabric down. And just for ease of you guys seeing, I'm going to take it off the machine for a second. And I'm going to lay it down just like that. And I want to make sure that I have got plenty on both sides. And you can feel the batting as well. I can say, okay, I need to move it down just a little bit. You can feel where the batting is to know that you've got it lined up with plenty of room on each side. Again, you can tape it down if you like, or do what I do. Just make sure you keep your fingers away from the moving needle. And let's tack down the fabric. Cool. Okay, so the next stitch is going to be the stippling. This is a 5-minute stitch out. Use the same colored thread up on the top of the machine as you already have. Put the foot down and let's go. Nice stippling. I love that. Okay, so now I'm going to take the papaya thread off of the top of my machine. And now I'm going to put the royal blue on here. And this is number 30661. Yes, that's the correct one. 30661. I'm going to put this thread in the top of my machine. And now we are ready to stitch out the crab. Now the crab is an 8-minute stitch out. So I'm also, take the papaya thread out the front first. I want to check my bobbin thread down below because I know that I'm getting a little bit low. And because it's an 8-minute stitch out, I know my machine will tell me that I'm out of bobbin thread, but I don't like to stop in the middle of a large stitch out like this, so I just put a new bobbin thread in it. That way it helps not have to stop in the middle. Of course, it doesn't say I'm not going to have to because there could be a nest or something terrible like that, but it just minimizes the chance of me having to switch it out just because of a bobbin, especially with like satin stitches. The one that does a satin stitch, I really don't like to have to undo and change bobbins because then it's really difficult to get my satin lined up without a bump in my satin stitch. So I just find it easier to put a full bobbin thread in if I'm going to have a large stitch out like this. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and stitch this out. It's 8 minutes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here we go. our crab. Look at that. Nicely done. Isn't that cool? Okay, so now go ahead and take the hoop off your machine, and you can go ahead and take this design out of the hoop. Now we're going to work on the next block, which is going to be block number 3. So I want you to follow the same steps we did with this block and put another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer in it, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so now we are ready to work on block number 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear this design. It tells me that it's finished embroidering, so I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to go to the home button, and I'm going to basically get out of this, delete the selected pattern. Yes, only deletes it out of memory. Doesn't delete it off the flash drive, just out of memory. So now we're going to go to embroidery, and we're going to load the next design. Flash drive, and take me to the beach. Now block 3 is a filler block. If we're on top of page 2. So it wants a filler block 3 by 2. So block 3, if you look at the design, she has it labeled filler block FB 3/27. We'll use this again for 27. But filler block 3, that's the one we're looking for. So let's bring that one up. Everything looks good. We're going to click set. Everything looks good, and click embroidery. Now let's go back to the hoop cam. All right, and I've got my thread ready for the next one. This is going to be color 30001. This is what's it called? Rock Navy. This glide thread is so awesome. I love it. And I went ahead and put my partial bobbin back in here because I can use this up until I get to the stippling. This is how I use bobbins that only have a little bit left, is I'll put it in and use it for like the placement line and the tack down line. And then when it comes to stippling or a larger embroidery, then I'll put the new one in. And that's how I use up my bobbins that only have a little bit of thread left, because we don't like to waste. Okay, no we don't. So I'm going to go ahead, put the hoop on. I'm going to take my previous thread out from the last block, and I'm going to load my navy blue thread now, because I can definitely use it for the placement stitch. I can use it for the tack down of the batting, and then we're going to be stippling with it. The first 2 steps you're never going to see, so it doesn't matter what color, and that will save me from having to change threads. You can use a white for the first 2 steps, that's not a big deal, but because you're not going to see it, it doesn't hurt to put the same thread you're going to use for step 3 and not have to change your thread so much, because we change it enough. Yes, we do. With a single needle machine, we change threads a lot. Okay, so I've got my thread loaded, and we're ready to stitch. You ready? Okay, let's do the first stitch, which is the placement line. Here we go. We're basically doing the same thing we did last time. Now we're going to do the batting. And I'm just going to lay down part of my large batting here that I have, that I didn't pre-cut. It's the same technique. So from here on out on the videos, I'm not going to be showing you this part, because you guys will know how to do this from these 2 blocks. So I'm just going to show you how to line that up. Hold it down, tack it down, and in the future, I'll just walk you through and say, okay, load your stabilizer, stitch out your placement line, blah, 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 and tack down your batting and your fabric, and you're going to know what that is. Now, if you need to refer to this, you'll have this video where I show you for the first 2 blocks how to do that, but then you've got this. That's easy enough, okay? So now, same thread in the top of the machine. We're going, whoops. Sometimes the thread will do that, and I'll just pull it out just a little bit. We're all lined up. Let's tack down the batting. Okay, same thing. I won't show you, but just go to your table and trim away this excess batting right around the line. Okay, meet you right back here. Okay, so now we've got the batting trimmed, and now we're looking for our blue scuba diver fabric. If you purchase the kit from Laurie Designs, then I've also fused the back of it with my Palon 860. So now I'm just going to line it up, and basically you can feel the batting. This needs to come over a little bit on this side, and the batting up and top, and we're good. So foot down. Tape it or use the stylus. Keep your fingers away from the moving needle. And let's tack this fabric down. You did it! Okay, we've got one step left. Now we're going to stitch out the cool stippling. It's going to fill this block. It's a 3-minute stitch out. You've already got the correct color thread up on the top. So let's put the foot down and let's stitch this out. Enjoy. Okay, look at that. Now we have our little scuba diver all stitched out. Can't really see it that well. There you go. How about that? That's cool. All right, so now let's go ahead and take this over to the table and let's finish up this block and the first block we did. Let's go. Okay, we're back at the table, and now we have blocks 1 and blocks 3 that we just stitched out. How cute are they? Now we're going to trim this up. So I'm going to put block 3 aside. We're going to focus on block 1. And if you look at the instructions that you received in the project, it wants us to cut 1/4 inch from the stitch line so that your block measures 3.5 by 4.5. Yes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at for this stitch line right here. It's the outer edge stitch line. And we want to trim 1/4 inch out from that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler, and for visualization on the TV here, I'm going to put it right on the stitch line. All right, so now you can see where the stitch line is. Now I'm going to move it this way 1/4 inch. All right, so actually I want to go this way with this ruler. All right, so this is better. So the ruler by Omnigrid has better highlighted lines going this direction, so you can see it better. So there I am on the stitch line, and now I'm going to move it to this highlighted line right there. Okay, so now I am going to be 1/4 inch away from the stitch line. Okay, so now I'm going to put my hand down, get my rotary cutter out, and I'm going to cut. Trim off this block. There we go. Off to the side. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it and do the opposite edge, because I know that this needs to measure 3.5 inches. So if I put that edge of this block right on there, so 10, and then you're telling me 13.5 would be 3.5, right? Then I can say, okay, I also need to be 1/4 inch away from the stitch line. So I'm going to go right like that, and that's where I'm going to cut. So my 1/4 inch mark is on that red stitch line. Put it down and cut it with the rotary cutter. Off we go. So now we've got the 3.5 going this way, and now this one is going to end up being 4.5. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to look for this outer stitch line, put the ruler on it, and then I'm going to move it this way to the 1/4 inch. right on it and trim that off. Do the same thing going this way, but then at the same time I can also make sure that it is going to measure to the 4.5. So I go to 4.5, and there she be, right there. Okay, so I've got my hand on, rotary cutter, trim that off. Okay, lock that, put this aside. Isn't that cute? Now you have one adorable crab block, so I'm going to put that off to one side. And now we're going to do the same thing with block number 3. And on the instructions, it wants it to be 3.5 by 2.5. So this is going to be 3.5 this way and 2.5 this way. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did with the first block. Line up the ruler on the blue. This one's a little bit harder to see because it's navy blue thread, so don't feel bad if you need to lean over to see it like I'm doing right here. Okay, so I'm on the stitch line, and now I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch past it. There we go. Okay, I'm going to trim that up. The darker colors are, of course, harder to see. Okay, so this needs to be 3.5. So I'm also going to make sure that on the same line here, yep, that's going to be 3.5. Line her up, trim it off. And so now this one's going to be 2.5. So again, start it by looking at that stitch line, going 1/4 of an inch to the right, trim that off, flip this around. Again, make sure your block measures that 2.5 inches. So I can come right here, line it up to 2.5, and I'm right on that stitch line. And trim it off. Okay. So now we have a really cute block with the scuba diver and some stippling on it. So you just completed blocks 1 and 3 of this project. I'm so proud of you. You did it. This is going to help build your skills for the next video. You're going to just build your skills and get better and better and better as we go through this project. I'm so glad you completed these 2 blocks. So I hope you come back and join me next time here on Jolly Molly TV, where we tackle the next 2 blocks, which is going to be blocks 2 and blocks 4. So I hope to see you soon. Until then, happy stitching. Bye-bye.